reflecting on your distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, because, you know, as an ex-teacher myself, I became very aware of that. The majority of every class were extrinsically motivated. So they needed the mark, they needed the sense of, you know, acknowledgement. But randomly you'd meet one child, and I'm thinking of one in particular actually, who never needed that. He never needed that. He was a very high achiever, and actually didn't even, when you marked his work, he didn't really care. And yet it didn't stop him from wanting to be better. So I'm wondering, in your story, with the reward was extrinsically there and then it became intrinsic, or whether it was always intrinsic, Seb, for you. I'm just very curious about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? What has it always been intrinsic? I think as a young man, you typically base your kind of the way in which you approach, you know, growth and stuff onto your father, and your relationship between you and your dad as a young bloke is kind of vital, right? You know, for those who have a male role model in their lives, and I think that I've seen in a lot of cases where, you know, a young boy hasn't had that praise as he's grown up, and they actually spend the rest of their life trying to seek praise from their father figure, even if their father's absent, right? So they go through their whole life not getting that. Whereas I feel like, you know, the relationship I had with my dad, he was always very, you know, he had very high standards, but he was also very, very supportive throughout that. So it's really hard for me to say, was it intrinsic or extrinsic? I feel like I was part of a system which taught me how to develop intrinsic motivation. And, you know, that's the strategy we use with martial arts, right? So when a child joins us, if you look at the black belt journey, they go from white belt to black belt. You're typically, you know, 3 to 4 months between each belt for the first 4 or 5 belts. We go even further in the Warrior Academy, and there's lots of little stages between each belt as well. So every single week they're trying to earn something to get to the next stage. So those are very, very close together. And then as they start to develop this drive and this relationship with pressure, you start to move these big goals further apart. Now the belts are 6 to 8 months apart, then they're 12 to 15 months apart, and then they can be 2 to 3 years apart. And one of the funny things I say to our parents is, you know, when you're first joining us, your kids are white belt, you're packing them bags, trying to get them to get to class, and, you know, really encouraging them to be there. But when your child is a black tag going for their black belt, they're packing your bags. They're trying to get you to get to class early so they can, you know, go and perform in the class. And so that's the achievement, right? It's being in that system which encourages you to have that intrinsic motivation and handle pressure and internalize pressure in a different way.